Hello, welcome everyone. For those of you that I've not met before, I'm Cecilia. I'm the Young People's Laureate for London this year. So basically my job's about spreading poetry around to more young people, no matter who you are. I think it can be a really positive space for everybody. So this is my third workshop, my third webinar as part of my campaign Write Through This, which is basically about giving you some low pressure creative space and time throughout lockdown. So whether you're a beginner or a full-time writer, hopefully there will be something in here for you tonight. It's just about giving yourself an hour. I'm going to frame it as an hour of kindness to yourself, an hour of expression and discovery in a low pressure environment. Like, we might share some lines and share some thoughts and share some reflections later on, but I'm not going to put you on the spot or make you share your poems with me if you don't want to. You can just be really private about that if you want to. That's totally fine. So yeah, this is a space of kindness, no self-judgment. We're just gonna all be here together in the virtual space from wherever we are, all over the country, I hope. And just know that we're all together for this hour, having a go. Like, even if you don't manage to write a single word, that's okay. You still showed up tonight, and that's a really important thing. And you might read some cool poems, because this week's session is all about drawing inspiration from poems. So even if you don't write a single word, that's okay. You still showed up, and that's awesome. And you might get a good feeling off of the poems that we read. Yeah, we're going to chat about some poems. I'm going to show you some poems. I'm going to share my screen and show you some poems, but I'm not expecting like a kind of forensic or academic analysis of these poems. You can just talk about how they make you feel or anything that you notice in them. And we're going to use them as a bit of a springboard, because that's kind of the theme of this week's webinar, is drawing inspiration from great poems, basically. Let's start with a kind of silly warm-up. Okay, so well, it's not silly because it's based on a really cool poem, but when I say silly, I guess what I mean is kind of trying to be free and not think too much and be a bit playful in our writing. I want to share a poem with you by Jack Underwood. So what I'm going to do is share the screen. Oh my gosh, someone's just said this reminds me of yoga with Adrienne, but poetry. I think I'm going to put that in my Twitter bio. I love that. That's a great endorsement. Right, let me share my screen. Dum, 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 dum. Bear with me, everyone. Need to get my PowerPoint up. Play my PowerPoint from the start. Okay, so this is the first poem that we're going to look at today. I'm a big fan of Jack Underwood. He was one of my tutors at uni, and is just a bit of an all-round legend, and has taught me a lot about poetry. So good for him. Okay, this is a poem called Accidental Narratives. I'm just going to read it through, and then we're going to have a quick little chat about it. Again, just to reiterate, don't worry if you don't get it or understand it on like a logical level. Like, sometimes all we get from poems are like feelings or images, and we don't have to understand them in a kind of normal way. So I'm not asking you to respond with like a kind of GCSE spark notes, like, and this metaphor, the purpose of it is this. I'm just wanting to talk a bit about like how it's making us feel. So don't worry, don't feel pressure about kind of understanding it in normal terms. Okay, accidental narratives. A crab on the phone box floor, the armless mannequin on the chapel roof at dawn, the plastic toad in the office biscuit tin, 3 cuts on your shin this morning to make the letter A, The wedding cake abandoned in the car park of the motorway services. The caraway seed in the turn-up of your jeans. The waxwork head of Chaplin in the bowling bag in the overhead locker of the night train to Munich. A slug exposed by the spotlight of a hushed concert hall. Or the roaring, magnificent intersection of these objects, which probably never existed, but we can each picture, drawn from our unique worlds at large, knocking like fish, trying to agree. Meanwhile, either somebody else somewhere is reading this now, or no one else in the entire world is. Cool, I'll let that digest with you for a minute. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Those last two lines are killer. Yes, I love the last two lines as well. Really enjoy that. It's a sonnet. Harry, were you here last week? Oh, is it last week? Yeah, last Wednesday. Good. So we did sonnets last week. Wicked. I'm glad that you've been correctly able to identify that. Love how it forces us to imagine what's outside the frame. Interesting. Yes. It's interesting how the more specific you get with an image, almost the more you do imagine what's going outside of the frame, because it's almost like each image in this poem is like a story in of itself. Like the wedding cake abandoned in the car park, for example, is one of my favorite lines. There is so much peripheral context to that. What about the waxwork head of Chaplin in the bowling bag in the overhead locker of the night train to Munich? Wild. What a wild and confident line to put in a poem. I think this poem kind of gives us permission to be whatever we want to be in a poem. Love how it shows we can find stories in absolutely anything. Yes, Anna, great point. Each image in this poem is incredibly vivid and striking. Absolutely, that's why I picked it. That's really good that you're picking up on that. Awesome. Ryan says, love the way the ending takes you out of the poem's events. Reminds me of the Wayne Holloway Smith poem that ends, somewhere everything you think you don't deserve is happening to someone else while you are unpicking all your failed relationships into a small glass jar. Or something along those lines. I think that was verbatim. I know that poem well. Yes. So I think what Ryan has landed on really well there is like almost the kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? The insignificance of it all, I think, is really landed on. There's like a self-consciousness to the fact that either someone's reading this or absolutely no one is. Does it matter? Kind of thing. So there's almost like a fatalisticness to the poem. And perhaps that is the thing that gives it the permission to just be listing these absolutely random things. A crab on the phone box floor, the toad in the biscuit tin, a slug in a concert hall, you know, these things. This poem is all about leaps. It leaps and leaps and leaps and leaps in a really cool way. And then it comments on the fact that there might be links between these things, and we might impose links upon these things depending on our own very unique, very different experiences and brains and the ways our brains work. But really, it doesn't matter. And I think there's a playfulness in this poem because of that. So let's do our warm-up that's going to be based on this poem. We're just going to do a 5-minute warm-up, okay? And I just want you to list images as they come to you without trying to link them, without putting meaning on it. I feel like, and this is something that Caroline Bird once told me, when we set out to write a poem and we go, the meaning of my poem is going to be being a woman, or my failed relationships. Like when we set up to write a poem with that in mind, we can almost kind of crush it because it's like we're so desperate to try and get to that meaning. Sometimes you have to let go and not know where you're going in a poem in order to uncover that kind of subliminal stuff that might be going on. So I just want you for, like, let's say 4 minutes for our warm up. Do you know what? Even less, actually, because these hours go so quickly. 3 minutes listing. We're listing images. Start with something you can see and just let your brain, or how does Jack put it? Let your brain complete the roaring, magnificent intersection between the first object that you choose and the next object that your brain takes you to, and just have fun with it. Katie, the page as a white door being propelled by the wonder of not knowing. Absolutely, let that give you the energy, not knowing where you're going. Let that take you on this free write. So just start with an image you can see and just keep going. They can be short, they can be long, up to you. You can have little staccato images or you can expand them, okay? That's from Caroline Bird. I'm not that wise. Yeah, I've heard her say that before too. Caroline is like the absolute queen of amazing ways to discuss poetry, which I actually find really difficult to discuss in the way that she does. She's magic. So that's your starting point, okay, everyone? Object, list, 3 minutes, and have fun. Enjoy. Okay, let's stop there. All right, everyone, let's move on to our next poem that we're going to use for inspiration. So it's really tough deciding what poems to use in workshops, because I did this podcast the other day where I had to talk about one poem in depth, and I spent like 24 hours agonizing over what poem to pick, because there's obviously so many poems in the world and so many great poems, and there's almost like a pressure to pick the best one. But then I reminded myself there's no such thing as the best poem. Like, you cannot really rate a poem in that way. And so I was approaching choosing poems for this podcast and choosing poems for this workshop with the spirit of freedom and playfulness and fun and joy, which is what I've been talking about a lot in my workshops recently. So I just thought, I'll just pick some poems that I've read recently that I love. It's not that deep. I'm not going to think too much about it. I just recently finished reading this collection, Shine Darling by Ella Frears, and I just think it's amazing. I really recommend it. And so I just thought I'd pick one of the poems, seeing as I'd read it recently. And this poem is called Resistance, and I thought we could use it for a writing prompt. I will read it through and then maybe we can have a little natter about it. Again, no pressure to like come in with the hard analysis. We'll just sort of talk about how it makes us feel or anything that we like about it. Resistance. We slept under a full moon. Our bodies wound like pale snakes through the silver-tipped grass. We opened our mouths and let the light fall in. Have you ever tried it? It's the closest light to water, pooling on your eyelids, cool and wordless on your tongue. We slept deeply, eyes open. We felt the weight of the water in the air, and wild laughter began to well up inside. We threw back our spotlit heads, let it pour till morning. Great, so I'll let you kind of reread that in your own time, but let me know what you think about it in the chat, just like we did with the Jack Underwood poem before. Top line break on that first line. Yeah, absolutely. Surprising, wound break, like pale snakes. Absolutely. Love it. Harry says, basically love any poem to do with the moon. Poets love the moon. Love every line of it. Brilliant, yeah. And it's quite short, isn't it? So it feels like every line really earns its place in the poem. So what I really like about this poem is the use of the collective, we. And I think it kind of feels, it almost feels like the poet could be talking to us, as well as whoever is the voice and the voice's companion in this poem. It could be the speaker and another person. It could be the speaker and us. It could be the speaker and everybody, which is interesting to me. I like this use of we. So I thought our exercise could be create a poem about a memory that you have and use the we. We don't have to know, you don't have to know if you're talking about you and one other person or you and the world, or you can know if you want to, but it's not essential. But start with we, and then the poem, I want the poem to become a list of actions you perform in that memory. So it could be we slept under a full moon, or it could be we drove down the dirt road, or it could be we swung on the rope swing, or we rode the last train. But we, and then an action, and keep that kind of structure or momentum throughout the poem. We did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. I think my main advice would be, don't worry about if it's factual or if it literally happened. You might start with a factual thing that happened, we drove down the road, but you could start to introduce things that didn't happen too. We took flight. We met a dog who could speak. I don't know. It's completely up to you. But what I want our writing task to be for 7 minutes is this list of actions. Keep it in the present tense, I think, would make it really interesting. Sorry, keep it in the past tense, sorry, like this poem is. We slept, our bodies wound, we opened our mouths. So a list of actions kept in the past tense. Introduce things perhaps that maybe didn't necessarily happen. You don't have to, but it might be really interesting to see what that reveals for you about that memory and where that takes you. Keep the sentences quite short, because if you notice in this poem, Ella isn't kind of explaining what everything means. It's not like we slept under a full moon and I felt so free and amazing. It's more listing the actions. So I want us to do that for 7 minutes. Does that make sense, everybody? Give me a little dot in the box. Cool. Awesome. Great. Okay, enjoy, everybody. Oh, I meant to say, if you want to introduce a question, like Ella does, have you ever tried it? Like a rhetorical question, then that might be a cool thing to chuck into. But we're going for 7 minutes. Okay, everyone, about 30 seconds left. So just start drawing what you've got to a close, not a finish. You don't have to finish anything. These are just beginnings probably, but just getting ready to move on to the next thing. And once you've drawn that to a close, let me know how that was for you. I'd really love to hear how you found that exercise, what it maybe uncovered for you, just anything really. Yeah, let me know in the chat box. Amy got a bit surreal towards the end, which was cool. Brilliant, brilliant. I love it when it gets a bit surreal. wrote about a strange object based on a memory I completely conjured out of nowhere. That's great. That's awesome. Most of poems, a lot of poems are kind of made up, aren't they? And then the truth is, we make things up in order to get to the truth of things sometimes, I think. Kept getting tempted to expand on the actions, but was cool to focus on them as just a series of events. Yes, without almost kind of narrating them as well. I sometimes struggle to keep it succinct as well, Katie. Hadn't decided to write what I wrote. Love it when that happens. Me too, so surreal. All right, well, I'm glad you all got something out of it. I'm also glad that you were kind of dipping a toe into the surreal, quite a lot of you, because the next poem that we're going to look at is by kind of like the queen of surreal herself, Caroline Bird, who I love. She's amazing. This is from the Air Year, which is the latest collection from Caroline Bird, and it won the Forward Prize this year. This is a poem called The Ground. Okay, I'm going to read it through and then we'll have a little chat about it. The ground. You land on a ridge 6 feet down the cliff, and you believe you have fallen from the dread summit and survived. You think this is the ground, until you notice the larks passing at eye level, drop a cufflink and fall 50 feet into the open palm of another ridge, deeper in, scratched, clothes torn. You've lost a shoe, but you think this is the ground. I can bake that lasagna now. Until a kite gets snagged in your hair, your feet meet a plunging carpet. Now you're hanging by your necklace from a branch thinking, this is the ground. Let's buy a puppy. As you sit in your bracken chair, as you fall in your chair like a lopped flower head, face planting, yes, ground. In a tree, wind burnt from momentum, whiplashed by your own screams, oops, then oops, oops, straddling a lamppost, a pillar, a shed, each time believing this is the ground, believing you've survived, falling, landing, falling out. Who knows how long you've been traveling down this thing, incrementally, held in the loosening, tightening fist of a giant with a featureless face. Thud. At last. I can put up that shelf, make that baby. You lie and let your bones heal, looking up at the distance, experiencing plateau for the first time, cold, hard, real, the opposite of air. You shake like a prodigal astronaut. I could build a house on this, you think, staggering off. Katie's already got in there with a wow. Meg says she talked about her writing process for this one in a conversation with Poetry London a few weeks ago. I think the very first bit came from a Shakespeare play or similar, and then wrote the next line and the next, and it suddenly turned into this poem about relationship after relationship. So fascinating. Yeah, I was at that talk as well, and one of the things I was really struck by is what Caroline said about not knowing where the poem is going to go while you're writing it. So this poem, she explained, was about, as Meg's just said, relationships after relationships after relationships, and the kind of the feeling of landing and thinking it's the ground. I guess thinking that you're in a relationship and that you found love, and then falling again is a metaphor for that. But one of the things that she said was that she didn't know that that was what she was writing about when she was writing it. She was just writing about falling, and the meaning came out afterwards. And also she said that something that really struck me, which was just like, the metaphor doesn't know it's a metaphor. Like at no point in this poem does she go, hanging on the branch of my love or anything like that. She's not saying by the way, this falling stuff is a metaphor. She's literally just describing what happened, and the meaning comes from that. Meg says, exactly, this was a surprise to her at the end from what she said. Yeah, it was. Naomi says, love how generic yet universal the things are that she wants to do when she thinks she's hit the ground. So relatable. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so your last prompt for this session is, I just want you to write without knowing where you're going and see what comes out. And I want you to write about doing something that is slightly probably impossible, that probably wouldn't happen in real life. Okay, so are you flying? Have you taken flight and you're flying and you're watching what's going on around you? Are you floating? Did you just start levitating one day? Are you driving a Formula One car? Are you riding a zebra, or riding a horse, or riding a rhino? It doesn't have to be a horse. Are you, I don't know, what are you doing? Are you running a marathon? Something unlikely that you would do, whether that's fantastical or whether that's kind of just like an exaggeration of something that you might do in your normal life. And I just want you to write about it. And I don't want you to think, I'm flying in this poem, therefore I'm talking about grief and I'm looking down at all the people I've lost. I just want you to write and just see what comes out and have fun in the same way that Caroline was talking about when she wrote this poem. So you can do anything, there's no rules. In short, let it go. Yeah, says Dante. Absolutely, you said it much better than I've said it. And just see what happens. I don't know, you could be a blacksmith in this poem. You could be making shoe horses. You could be, are they called horseshoes is what I meant. Can you tell it's been a long week already? Yeah, you could be a wizard, you could be a sea monster, you could be flying, you could be floating, you could be anything in this poem, but just see where it goes. Okay, you have 5 minutes for this one. Okay, and just enjoy it. And you might, at the end of this free write, start to see what this might be about. It might take you a bit longer and a bit more work on it, but just take the pressure off yourself and just write without knowing. Okay. Okay, everyone, about 30 seconds left just to draw it to a close. Don't worry about finishing or wrapping it up or anything. Just kind of finish the sentence that you're on, and we'll come back together. So how is that for everyone just before we go? Let me know. Oh, that was my cat sneezing. Oh, are you okay? Yeah. Lots of fun, that's good to know. Fun and weird. Kept telling myself not to find a concept yet. That was hard. I mean, yeah, I do find that hard too, because things will naturally start to creep in. And I guess it's maybe about acknowledging them, but not surging towards them, like not then trying to sort of shoehorn them in, I suppose. Refreshing not to think about the grand old monster of meaning. That's amazing. Okay, Sophie wrote about being a wrestler. Awesome, I love that. That's such a good idea. Really enjoyed it. Okay, loved it. Okay, that's great. Mister, do you want to come and say hello? Okay, fantastic, everybody. I'm so pleased everyone had fun. That's what I wanted from the workshop. I wanted everyone to have a really good time. That's really great. All right, everyone. Couple of things before we go. Firstly, thank you for sharing some of your poems with me from the previous 2 weeks via social media and via email. I've seen them all and they're beautiful. I've been reposting them and shouting them out where I can. This is the end of the free webinar series as part of the Write Through This campaign, but stop licking me. But there will be some more writing tips that I'm going to be dropping next week. And there's already a bunch of writing tips on the Spread the Word website that you can watch as well. They're like little 10-minute videos for you to try out if you want a little burst of creativity. If you go onto spreadtheword.org/write through this, then you'll be able to find them. Also, if you want to share anything that you wrote today, you can hashtag write through this. So you can share your writing that way. You could also email hello@spreadtheword.org.uk and share your writing that way. But go online and check out the writing tip videos as well if you want to. Great, I'm so pleased to have been able to spend the last 3 Wednesdays with you. So nice. Honestly, it's such a boost to know that we're all kind of doing it together, that we're all in our various rooms doing a bit of writing and chatting. Previous webinars are available on the Spread the Word YouTube channel for the next month or so. So if you wanted to catch up, you could do those as well. That's it. You can catch me on social media. I'm always tweeting about other workshops that I'm doing and young people's laureate stuff and gigs and all of that good stuff. Can I just say a huge thank you to Amy for brilliantly interpreting for us today. Thanks to Tom for the tech support, and thank you all to you for coming. I hope you give yourselves a nice evening full of kindness. And good night from me and Mr. Ginge.